In 1995, when the commander of the 2nd Ranger Battalion ordered a reinvigoration of combatives training, we quickly realized that the traditional combatives training methodologies didn't fit the realities of our modern training environment or the modern battlefield. Over the course of the last 10 years, we have developed the Modern Army Combatives program, which begins with the ground grappling of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, progresses through the throws and takedowns from wrestling and judo, through the stand-up fighting skills of boxing and Muay Thai, the weapons fighting skills of Kali and the Western martial arts. And if you combine all that with scenario-based training and what we know about training large groups of people to do things based upon our experiences in the Army, soon you have a program that can actually train soldiers to do the things that we've always wanted them to be able to do, but never really had a good program to get them there. The training will begin with ground grappling for the simple reason that it is easier both to teach and to learn. If you go to a traditional martial arts or striking gym, there's no expectation that in the short term you'll have any real gain in fighting ability. When training our soldiers, we must do better than that. We must not only make them a better fighter than they are quickly, but the training must lay the foundations for all follow-on training, growing into the striking skills, takedowns, weapons fighting that they're going to actually be asked to do on the battlefield. The central theme of all the techniques in the Modern Army Combatives program is the idea that you can practice them against a fully resistant opponent. This idea allows us to use competitions as a tool to spur on training. Soldiers can compete to be the champion of their unit at all levels. They can also be asked to compete at any time. Finish a 6-mile road march, you and you fight. That's simple. So that soldiers know that combatives is going to be a part of their normal day or their normal week. In this way, every soldier will know it's important for them to train, to be ready to fight when called upon. There are two things that we want everyone to memorize before they leave the United States Army Combative School. The first one is this: the winner of the hand-to-hand fighting combat will be the one whose buddy shows up first with a gun. Now that's an important thing to remember because it puts combatives training in context. We are not going to win the next war because we are better hand-to-hand fighters. We are, however, going to win the next war because of what it takes to be a better hand-to-hand fighter, and that's where the second thing we want you to memorize comes in. The defining characteristic of a warrior is the willingness to close with the enemy. No matter what skill sets they may have, if they're not willing to go through the door with you when it's time, they're not really a warrior. And that's what hand-to-hand training is all about. Ground grappling is a game of position. So just like when you're a kid on the playground, Sergeant Bach is in a better position than Sergeant Hill is. He's in a better position because he can strike Sergeant Hill, and Sergeant Hill cannot strike him back. So this position is called the mounted position. It is the second best position. The only position that's better than this is this position here. Now, if you've played a combative game like wrestling or judo that has a penalty for having your back on the ground, realize there's no penalty for having your back on the ground in combat. The penalty is for having your back to your enemy. So, for example, Sergeant Hill's back is to Sergeant Bach in this position. Now, this is the best position, Sergeant Bach's position, the best position you could be in. This is called the rear mounted position. Let's go back to the mount for a second. Now, notice the difference between this position here, the mounted position, and this position here. Now Sergeant Bach is inside of Sergeant Hill's guard. Now you never want to be on the bottom, but you never know when you're going to be, and so you have to know how to fight from there. Although Sergeant Bach is in a better position than Sergeant Hill, still Sergeant Hill has a good position to begin to defend himself. So this is the guard position. Now the last position is the side control position, which is this position here. Now it's not strictly speaking dominant. Sergeant Bach is in a better position, but it's more like 60-40, because to hurt Sergeant Hill, he would have to raise up a little bit, and therefore give Sergeant Hill what he needs to defend himself. Nonetheless, it comes up all the time, so you need to know where it fits in relation to the other positions. The first thing we want to do is learn to stand up as we would in the presence of an opponent. So notice how Sergeant Hill is sitting here. He's posted on one leg, he's got the other leg flat, and he's posted on his backhand. He also has this arm up to guard himself. But what he wants to do now is post on his arm and his forward leg and lift his butt up off the ground so he can swing it back and forth. After he's done that, he's going to take his knee here and he's going to bring it through his armpit to post it behind his hand like this. And then he's going to stand up into a fighting position. So let's see it one more time, Sergeant Hill. So standing in base, go ahead. If you find yourself mounted by your opponent, at some point he will try to grasp you by the neck. When he does so, you want to secure a grip on his arm with a thumbless grip. Notice you're going to pinch his arm to your chest. With your other hand, you're going to grasp his arm at the elbow with your thumb on the outside. This grip allows you to keep your elbows tucked in. Once you've got that grip, the next thing you're going to do is take your leg on the same side as the arm you have captured and place it outside of his leg. You then want to take your other leg and line it up with your enemy's spine. So once you've got that there, you're going to pick him up with your hips as if to throw him straight over the top. And once you've got him up in the air, you're going to roll over to come up inside of his guard. If you find yourself inside your enemy's guard, in other words, he has his legs wrapped around your waist and you're inside of him, the first thing you want to do is assume good posture. What good posture means is your knees are going to be spread out so that your body's like a pyramid and you're sitting on your feet. At the same time, you're holding him down with your palms and your fingers are pointing outward. And your head is up and you're upright. After this, you want to defend chokes and punches. So your hands are going to rotate in and you're going to drive your hands up to your enemy's chin. Your head will come down to his sternum. At this point, your hands will come out to capture his biceps with a thumbless grip. And once you've done that, you can sit up a little bit. Now you're going to try to make some space with your hips. So you're going to post one of your legs up. It doesn't really matter which one, but what that does is turn your hip. So now you're going to turn your head away from that leg and take the same side hand and with a knife edge put it through that hole till it's on the ground. At this point, your hand on the ground, you're going to put your knee back on the ground and scoot away from that at a 45-degree angle so that arm becomes a ramp. And this makes, the more he squeezes his legs, the more likely this leg is to end up on your shoulder, which is where you want it. Now you're going to take that hand and you're going to capture his leg with it and pull him up so that he's on your lap here. Okay? Once you've done that, you're going to step up with the same side leg as the arm you've got through and reach across so that you grab with your thumb on the inside of his collar here. So this is arm across. Now what you're going to do is drive that knee forward so that your spine comes around perpendicular to his spine. And after you've done that, pull your arm out and grasp a hold of his belt right in the middle of his back. You're going to stack him up, meaning you're going to get his butt up above his head so he's in this uncomfortable position here. And after you've done that, you're going to allow him to get that leg past you, pressure with your chest to come down to a good side control position. If you find yourself in side control, the first thing you want to do is establish a good position. The first step there is to anchor your chest to their chest. And the way you set that relationship is by having your elbow here inside what we'll call the elbow notch between his head and his shoulder. The next thing you want to do is control the hips. And there's a couple of ways to do that, but the basic way is to pinch them between your elbow here and your knee on the back side. So he's pinching his hips there. And the last thing is to put this leg out with your toe down so that you can put your weight on top of your opponent. Now once you've established a good side control position, you want to try to get mounted. So one method to do that is this. He's going to take his arm, the one closest to his hips, and he's going to move it to the back side on the ground, controlling the opponent's hips there. The next thing he's going to do is take his leg that's closest to the enemy's head here, and he's going to move it underneath the other leg up against his hip. And he's going to spread his legs out so he's got a good solid base back here. Now the hand that was blocking the hips, he'll bring up to either push or pull the legs out of the way. And once he's done so, he'll just swing his back leg over, spread his arms out, and be mounted. After you have moved your hand back to block the opponent's hips, you need to take your leg here closest to his head and sit underneath the other leg like this. And then spread your legs out here. It's important that this leg be back all the way here to block this hole. And now this hand can come free to move the legs out of the way. The techniques of the Modern Army Combatives program are taught around a series of drills. This allows us to do a couple of things. First, it allows us to maximize our training time. For example, if we had an hour's worth of time to train combatives, we could use the drills as a warm-up. This would help us build muscle memory in the basic techniques. As well, each time we could perfect our techniques by concentrating on a few details. The drills also allow us to fit combatives around our other training. For example, tomorrow when your unit goes out to do PT, you run, you come back to do sit-ups, and then do drill number 3 from the combatives program. So how long did it take to fit combatives into your usual day? About the same amount of time as a set of sit-ups. Now, if we take the techniques of escaping the mount with the trap and roll, passing the guard, and achieving the mount, those 3 together form drill number 1, or the basic drill. So, for example, Sergeant Miller would trap Sergeant Hill's arm and go into his escape, trapping the arm, lifting him up, rolling him over, assuming a good posture, and then passing the guard, trapping the biceps, one leg comes up, knife edge hand through, moving away, placing him on his lap, stepping and reaching, coming around beside him, stacking him up, and then settling down in side control, placing his hand back, sitting through, achieving the mounted position. At this point, Sergeant Hill would do the same thing, capturing the arm, taking the leg and rolling him over, coming up in good posture, and then passing the guard. One leg coming up, hand goes through, moving away from it, stepping and reaching, coming around perpendicular, stacking him, passing, and then achieving the mounted position, sitting through, stepping over. And they could do this again and again, as many repetitions they like. Drill number 1. When you find yourself mounted on your opponent and you begin to strike him, he may attempt to block by putting his arms across his face like this. Refer to this as the George Foreman block. Whenever he does so, you're going to take your hands with a thumbless grip. One of them is going to go on the back of the enemy's elbow, the other on his wrist, and you're going to push that arm across his face. Now, it's important to note that it's the top arm, the arm closest to the enemy's head. At this point, you're going to capture that arm in place with your chest and then reach around his head to grab another thumbless grip, trapping his arm around his neck. The hand that started on his wrist now comes to his elbow, and you're going to push with your chest and hold that elbow in place with your hand so that you can get a ratcheting motion and roll the opponent over. When you get to this position, his elbow will block him from going any farther. So you want to relax your weight off of him, pull that elbow underneath him, and push him over it. And at this point, he's wrapped up like a present, so you can go ahead and sit up and prepare for the rest. Now, everybody does the same thing in this position. They all try to get their hands and knees under him. So as he does so, spring into his knees, you want to place your legs inside of his legs. And what you're looking for with your legs once you get them in is to hold on with your heels as if they were hooks. You do not want to cross your feet here, or you do not want to hold on with your toes, either one. What you want is this heel right here to become a hook holding on to his thigh. Now once you've got your hooks in place, you're going to reach one hand under his arm and the other hand over his arm and secure an opposing thumb's grip, meaning your thumbs are out like this. Now, the wrestling grip, like this, is actually stronger, right up until the enemy breaks your fingers, which is illegal in wrestling, and therefore you can get away with this. So we're looking for the opposing thumb's grip here. When your opponent is attempting to achieve the rear mount, and after he has placed his hooks in, but before he has put the arms under and over, at this point, you know he's going to reach around you, so you want to direct the way he's reaching. You're going to do this by placing one arm around the front of your head with your palm closest to your ear here. This head is nice and tight to his arm so that the bad guy can't reach through this gap here. Now you know the bad guy's going to reach through this armpit, so you're going to take your other hand and place it in that armpit open like this. So when the enemy does, you grasp his wrist and push it away from you. At this point, you want to take this arm away from your head and wrap it around his arm, forming the figure 4. Now this arm is trapped, so what you're going to do now is fall on top of it so that it is pinned underneath your body. You can let go of his arm now and place the closest hand you have to him on his hip with a straight arm, and the other hand can go to either the top or the bottom knee, whichever is appropriate. And you're going to scoot yourself towards your head until your butt clears his leg. Now once you've escaped your hips through his legs, the next thing you're going to do is take your leg that's closest to him, and using almost a shrimping motion, you're going to get your knee in between you and him here and on the ground. Now once you've done that, you're going to bring the other knee together and through the gap, and making a hook with this backside foot, you're going to bring this knee out so you're hooking him right below this knee here. After you've done that, you're going to turn your torso over, and you're going to post on your knee here and climb up on top. Only letting go the hooks when you're all the way mounted. Now if we put together both achieving the rear mount and escaping the rear mount, we have drill number 2. So for example, if Sergeant Miller was striking Sergeant Hill, he blocked, pushed the arm across, rolled him over with a ratcheting motion, fold him forward onto his arm and sit up, and Sergeant Hill would roll forward and escape the back mount. First leg through, second leg make the hook, climb on top. Now the rolls would reverse. Sergeant Miller would block with the correct. He'd push the arm across, roll him over with a ratcheting motion, forward him onto his elbow. Whenever Sergeant Hill achieved the hook, Sergeant Miller would roll, and now he would escape. Scooting through, first one leg, then the other one, climbing on top. As many repetitions as necessary or as possible. Drill number 2. Now, as we get into the ways to hurt your opponent, it's important to understand that all the ways we're going to teach have a large pain threshold before there's any damage. This allows us to signal your partner that you're in pain before there's any damage. So, for example, if Sergeant Bach was breaking Cooper's arm, as the pain got on, it would hurt, so Cooper would tap. Now it's important to understand you always let go whenever your opponent taps. You don't know how much pain they're in, or you don't know when they're going to be injured, so the only one that can be a judge of this is them. You can also signal surrender verbally. So for example, if Cooper couldn't tap, maybe his arm was trapped or something, he could sound off, "Ugh," just like that. Now the best way to win a fight is to choke your opponent unconscious. It's the best way because short of stabbing him or shooting him or hitting him with a brick, it's the quickest way to incapacitate him. It's also reasonably harmless, so that we can do it to each other in training and it's not really dangerous. Now when you choke someone, there's a couple of different ways to do it. One would be to stop the air supply to their lungs. So you can imagine how long that would take. If you were holding your breath underwater, you could go without air to your lungs for a minute or two at least, even under duress. The other way, however, is to stop the blood supply to his brain. Now imagine how long you can go without blood to your brain. So this is a much more efficient method. It's the method we're going to use. So the first technique we're going to do is called the rear naked choke. It's called the rear naked choke because you would do it from the rear mounted position and without the use of your opponent's clothing. So the first thing here, the arm that's over the shoulder. Sergeant Miller is going to bring it around his neck so that his bicep is on this side of his esophagus where the blood supply would be, and then bring the forearm muscle around to the other side of his neck. And after you've got your arm around his neck, you're going to cinch it up just as if you were cinching up your tie. And he's going to take this arm now and place it either on his shoulder or in the hook of his own arm, just like that. This arm now is going to come back like he was combing his hair all the way to the back of his head. Okay? He's going to put his face down because the enemy's only option now is to poke him in the eyes or something. And he's going to finish the choke by expanding his chest and pulling with his back muscles. When you have dominant position on your opponent, either he is inside your guard or you're mounted on him, you can execute the cross-collar choke. It's called the cross-collar choke because it's going to utilize your opponent's collar in order to get the choke. You're also going to cross your arms. So the first thing you want to do is take your weaker hand and pull open his collar. Now once you've made an opening there, you're going to insert the fingers of your other hand inside the collar in a nice relaxed fashion so you can get it all the way behind his neck. And then you're going to make a grip. And once you have that grip, the first hand you're going to let go of and bring it underneath the other hand. Fingers on the inside once again, all the way to the back so that your fingers are touching in the back. You're now going to make two grips and rotate your wrists to face you. After you've done that, you're going to finish the choke by expanding your chest and pulling your shoulders back, just like that. And when you're mounted on your opponent, the cross-collar choke is almost exactly the same. You're going to open him up, place the first hand in, place the second hand in. The difference is at this point you're going to place your head on the ground. Now notice your back is arched this direction. To finish the choke, when you expand your chest, you will arch your back the other direction. Go ahead. To finish him off just like that. Once again, when you're mounted on your opponent and you're striking him, he may choose to block. If he blocks with the arms parallel like this, which we'll call the standard block, you're going to take both hands with no thumbs and drive one of his arms down to the side. Once you've done that, you're going to drop your elbow down into the elbow notch, and at this point your head would come down on the back of his hand. Now Sergeant Miller is going to bring his head up so you can see the rest of the technique. Your hand that was on his elbow is going to go underneath his elbow and secure a grip on your own wrist. Notice two thumbless grips. Now notice at this time his fingers here are like a paintbrush. What you're going to do is drag that paintbrush along the ground, and at the same time you're going to raise his elbow like this. Now notice you can do either one of these actions and it doesn't hurt him. But if you do them together, dragging and lifting, you'll blow out his shoulder just like that. When you're striking your opponent from the mounted position, his last option is to try to bench press you off. When he does this, you basically want to decide which arm you want to break. I think Sergeant Miller is going to break the arm on the far side there. You want to reach over the arm you're breaking and under the other arm. Placing all your weight on your hands, you want to pop up to your toes. Now notice, Sergeant Miller's butt is low and his toes are near the armpits. At this point, he wants to look and lean away from the arm he's breaking. So that his weight is on this leg and on his arms. He can trace his leg around the head. Now he wants to slide down the arm, just like he was sliding down a fireman's pole. He wants to pinch his knees together, grasping the arm with a thumb grip this time. He wants to pull it down to his chest and break the elbow by pushing his hips upward, just like this. Now when you practice this technique, you need to practice it first to pop up to your feet, just like this. But later on, whenever you're practicing it, your feet don't actually stop there. It's one continuous smooth motion all the way to the end, so it'll be just like this. The straight arm bar from the mount can also be done as a drill. When the enemy bench presses you off, you simply execute the straight arm bar. When you get around to the end, the leg that's closest to the head rotates to the hip, and you come back on top. He'll then bench press you off, and you'll execute to the opposite side. You'll do this back and forth, alternating sides. And you can do this as many repetitions as you like. This is the straight arm bar from the mount drill. When you have your opponent in your guard, he may give you straight arms, as here with the choke. At this point, you once again want to decide which arm you want to break. So I think Sergeant Miller is going to break the far side arm. You'll reach up and grasp that arm. If he's got a jacket, grasping it by the jacket. If not, grasping it by the elbow bumps. And you're going to take your other hand and with your palm out, reach underneath his leg. At this point, you want to relax your legs and bring them over you so that your center of gravity comes up. And then you want to pull with this arm to spin, as Sergeant Miller has done here. Now the leg that comes around his head, you want to reach up and grab his head with, pulling him towards you. And after you've done that, bring the hand out from underneath his leg, secure a thumb grip on his wrist, and break his elbow with hip pressure. The straight arm bar from the guard can also be done as a drill by alternating sides. So for example, Sergeant Bach would execute the straight arm bar from the guard, but before he brings his arm out, he will simply let loose the head, rotate around to the guard, and to do it exactly the same to the opposite side. He can go back and forth now on this drill, making sure that he rotates his hips in 180 degrees for the straight arm bar from the guard drill. Once again, when your opponent is mounted on you and you're attempting to get him off by using the trap and roll technique, you will at this point have grabbed his arm. When you attempt to grab his leg, though, it doesn't take a rocket scientist for him to move the leg out of the way. Well, the good news is, when he moves it out, there's this hole right here that you're going to take advantage of. So the way you're going to do that is you're going to use your elbow to boost his knee up and bring your knee through. When your knee is through, you're going to place your weight on that same side foot and use that to turn your entire body to face the other direction. Once you've turned, you're going to escape this foot and put it over the enemy's foot just like this so that he can't just step over you. Now when you've escaped the first leg and turned over, at this point you'll still be holding on to the enemy's arm. So now you're going to let go of that arm and use both of your hands or elbows, whichever you can get in the way, to block the enemy from moving his knee towards you. You're going to now move your hip back and get your knee through this gap here. Once you've got that, the enemy will be pursuing you, so you're going to place your weight on this foot, turn over to face the other way again, escape your foot, and place the enemy within your guard. Now the key to this attack, or this escape, is called the shrimp move. Essentially, it breaks down like this. You're going to find yourself laying on one side, and you're going to bring your bottom leg up. Up meaning trying to get it as close to your head as you can. After you've done that, you're going to put your weight on this foot and turn over so that your whole body, hips, shoulders, and everything turns. When you've done that, you're going to post on this foot, and using your shoulder as the pivot point and this leg as the driver, you're going to move just your butt back, just like this, into this shrimp-like position. When you're attempting the straight arm bar from the guard, first you secured his arm, placed your arm underneath his leg, and spun around. At this point, if your opponent should tuck his head, you're not going to be able to grasp him with this leg. So what you want to do now is this. First, you want to pull your head as close to this leg as you can. Then you want to take your leg that you were attempting to grab his head with and swing it in the direction his head is pointing to get some momentum. You're going to point this heel and you're going to push the opponent towards his head. And at the same time, sweep your leg back out of the way so you roll up over your thigh. When your opponent is attempting to pass your guard, after he pins the biceps, he'll post one of his legs up. And when he does so, you have an opportunity to take him over once again. So at this point, you're going to relax your legs and hang on the calf of your leg that's on his posted leg. And you're going to post on your opposite side shoulder. This hand goes underneath his arm towards his collar, and swinging on this leg and that shoulder, you're going to move your butt out from underneath him. At that point, this leg will come inside just like a belt here, with your foot hooking on this hip, okay? His weight will be on your bicep there, so you're going to change your pivot to now pivot on your hip, move your torso back this direction, and with a scissor motion of your legs, you're going to kick him over and end up on top. Now, by placing together the shrimp escape and either the sweep from the attempted straight arm bar or the scissor sweep, we can have drill number 3. So, for example, the shrimp escape, and the scissor sweep, and the same shrimp escape, this time with the sweep from the attempted straight arm bar. We can do this as many repetitions as we need to. Drill number 3. If you were to get in a fight tonight, almost anywhere in the world, imagine what your opponent's plan would be to beat you. We can pretty much assume that his plan would be to strike you until you had received enough damage where you could not fight back effectively. We call this the universal fight plan because everybody's got it. You don't even really have to teach it to anybody. So the first thing we want to do is come up with a way to defeat that plan. We're going to do that by controlling the fight. We're going to control the fight by controlling the different aspects of stand-up fighting. Those aspects are range, which we'll get into in a minute, angle. For example, if Sergeant Bach was here, he has the angle on Sergeant Hill. And lastly, we have level, which we're not really going to get into in level 1. So back to range. The ranges are, first, projectile weapon range, meaning you're far enough away where the only way they're going to hurt you is to shoot you or throw something at you. So projectile weapon range. As we come closer, we move into striking range. This is the range where you can reach each other if you were going to hit each other with either your fists or contact weapons or kicks. The next range beyond that is clinching range or grappling range, meaning you're too close to each other where it's no longer a game of striking, but now a game of grappling. From a good fighting stance outside of striking range, when you either have A, the opportunity, or B, just the courage, you're going to close the distance. When you come in, keep your position tight and drive your forehead all the way into your opponent's chest. When you get there, your hands should rotate out over his biceps in what we call the King Louis position to control strikes. Now, once you're in this position, you're going to look away from the direction you want to go. You're going to trace your arm over his arm and suck his arm into your armpit. Now, many things are going on at once here, so he's going to let go of this arm so you can see what's happening on the backside. You're going to drive this elbow up underneath his arm as you step around beside him. Now that hand will come around his waist. So to see those things together, come on back. Driving in, hands go over the biceps in the King Louis position, reaching over the arm, stepping around and driving through. Hand on the hip, feet square, head nice and tight, nice stable position. Now from the clinch position, if you end up in front of your opponent, what you want to do at this time is release your grip of the hand that's around his arm and secure a grip with both palms facing down. You're going to step in front of him because the idea is to drive him just like you were tackling him. You're going to pull with your hands and push with your head so that you've broken his posture. Now the rest is all going to happen together, so he's going to hold on for a minute. You're going to release your grip because you don't want to fall on your hands with both of your weight. You're going to step your leg over the top of him and you're going to push your hips forward to ride him down to the mounted position. So it'll be all together like this. If you end up behind your opponent, first thing you want to do is assume this good position. Notice Sergeant Bach's forehead is in the small of Sergeant Hill's back. He's holding around the front with the opposing thumb's grip, and his legs are back away from him so that his legs cannot be attacked. The next thing he wants to do is step around to the quarter, lined up with Sergeant Hill's pocket. So he'll step around and line his foot up perpendicular to the foot here. Now, once he's done that, he's going to take his other foot and put it out right on the Achilles tendon here, and then relax himself so he's just sitting down and pulling on the waist here. So at this moment, whenever Sergeant Hill starts to fall, he would come right down on this elbow. So this is all going to happen at once. So he's going to let go of this arm and pull it out of the way so he doesn't land on his own elbow, and then he's going to roll right up in a mounted position. So it'll look like this here. If your opponent shoots in to grab you, he may present his head to you like this. When he does, you want to feed it into your armpit and bring your arm around just his neck with your palm facing yourself. You're then going to reach your other hand over, so now both palms are facing you, and you're going to cinch that choke up. And once you have it cinched up, you're going to sit straight down in that position, wrap your legs around your opponent's waist, push with your legs, pull with your arms to finish the choke. This concludes the basic techniques of the Modern Army Combatives program. These techniques, like BRM does for combat marksmanship, lay the foundation for successful combatives training. Remember, confidence comes from competence. With systematic training, every soldier can experience the physical and emotional demands of hand-to-hand combat and win, and every soldier can know that they are a warrior.